I love the yellow. Are you okay? Hold on. Good evening and welcome to the August 3rd, 2022 Board of County Commission meeting. I'm Nicole Gibbs, Community Relations Specialist. This is a special meeting regarding a public budget hearing for 2023 budget. This meeting is being streamed live on the Sedgwick County's Facebook page and YouTube channel and will also be recorded and placed on our website after the meeting at sedgwickcounty.org. Comments regarding the recommended budget will be accepted online until 5 p.m. Tuesday, August 23rd, once again on our website, sedgwickcounty.org. With that, Chairman, I turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I want to welcome everyone that's joining us online and those that are in the audience. We do have a full audience this evening, so I appreciate everyone that has an interest in our budget. You're going to find it's a little over $500 million, and there's about 800 pages long, so you're going to have a lot to read in the evenings. Well, with that, I'd like to call the Board of County Commissioners meeting to order, the special meeting for August the 3rd, 2022. Madam Clerk, next item.
Invocation to be observed by a moment of silence. Please remain standing for the flag salute.
Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Roll call. Commissioner Meitzner.
Present.
Commissioner Cruz.
Present.
Commissioner Howell.
Present.
Commissioner Lopez.
Present.
Chairman Dennis.
Present. Next item, please.
New business. Item A, public hearing regarding the 2023 Sedgwick County budget.
Manager Stilts.
Morning, or good evening, Chairman and Commission. It's been a long day. This evening is the first public hearing for the 2023 recommended budget. Sedgwick County's recommended operating budget totals $497,530,461. This budget will be supported with a property tax levy of $173,381,324,
Big numbers.
which is approximately equivalent to 29.370 mils based on the estimated assessed valuation and subject to technical adjustments. I recommend you open the public hearing, receive comments, and close the hearing. Close the matter once the hearing is over.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I appreciate it. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing and receive public comments. I'll read out the names in the order that they were signed in today. You'll have 5 minutes when you approach the podium. As I said, you'll have 5 minutes to state your name for the record, please. Well, the first individual to speak tonight is Jim Burgess. Evening, Jim.
Good evening. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. It's good to be able to speak to you again. Been a while. My name is Jim Burgess. As a matter of disclosure, I am a member of the Sedgwick County Advisory Council on Aging, as well as a member of the Advisory Board of the Derby Senior Center. This evening, I am speaking for myself and not as a member of any commission or board. I will say, however, that 4 board members from the Derby Senior Center are here to observe this proceeding, just to see how the government works. I was greatly discouraged last August, encouraged last August when the county commission, didn't bring my bifocals, so you're patient with me. I was greatly encouraged last August when the county commission approved $500,000 for the use of seniors in Sedgwick County. Unfortunately, the funds were not allocated until recently, and to my knowledge, no contracts have been let. Since the funds must be expended by the end of 2022, it's becoming less and less likely that these funds will be fully utilized before the funds expire. At any rate, one-time funding does little for the seniors of Sedgwick County. For the past several years, funding for seniors has been stagnant, while the population of seniors continues to grow steadily, and the seniors are in need of more and more services. For the past several years, funding for the senior centers in Sedgwick County has also been stagnant. Finally, last year, 2 senior centers, Mulvane and Valley Center, did receive funding they should have received 10 years ago. There are at least 2 senior centers, Oaklawn and La Familia, that are struggling to stay open because of a shortage of funding from the county or from any other source. Both serve low-income communities and offer services heavily used and badly needed by their communities. I know that there have been conversations among the commissioners as to the value of funding for senior centers. The senior centers are the place where seniors go to seek services. They are the focal point for seniors to find out about and use services, as well as to congregate and to socialize. The centers also serve as the servicing point for other activities funded by the county and others. The basic problem for funding for seniors in general by Sedgwick County is the uncertainty of it. In 1982, Sedgwick County voters passed a funding requirement of up to $1 million for the exclusive use of funding senior centers needs, or senior citizens' needs. We all know there is a rapidly growing number of seniors in Sedgwick County who have increasing needs. It is necessary that a stable source of funds be available to meet those needs. Properly used, the aging mill levy funding can do that. The calculated mill levy equivalent for the 2023 budget is a record low 0.391 mills. Just to keep up with inflation, we would have expected to see an increase of at least 9% in funding for seniors in Sedgwick County. Instead, it is virtually the same number of dollars as last year. In 1982, there was a special election item that passed funding up to $1 million to be dedicated to the needs of the rapidly growing senior population and their growing needs. The amount allocated has steadily dropped from 0.75 mils in 1983 to the current 3.71 or 3.91 mils. The county commission is not meeting the spirit of that election requirement, which was specifically passed by a large majority of Sedgwick County voters in 1982. I find this disrespectful of the senior population, and I find it a dereliction of your duty to meet the needs of the seniors in Sedgwick County. I would like to know when Sedgwick County Commission will step up and meet the needs of the population. Is it that you don't care, or that you're not interested in taking care of the seniors' needs? Or is it just, I hate to use the word, that you're stingy? The senior citizen population of Sedgwick County expects you to step up, take responsible for your actions toward them. Remember, senior citizens vote. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Commissioner Howell.
Thank you, Chairman. We have not talked about whether or not we would be allowed to make comments and ask questions during the hearing. Is that acceptable to do that?
You can speak.
I've talked to, just in full disclosure, I have talked to Mr. Burgess a few times about this over the years, and I completely agree with everything you've said today. And I think the one way to get the politics out of this is to discuss putting the ballot question back on the ballot for confirmation, and let's clean it up. Because right now the current language is, the language was something very similar to shall Sedgwick County levy a tax up to $1 million for service programs for the elderly. I think is almost exactly what it said. And it's been opined recently that up to $1 million could be 0 to 1, and 0 is a number. Therefore, there's no obligation to do anything in terms of actually providing any funding. In fact, all it did was limit us to 1 mil. I don't think that's the spirit of what was intended. I think, as you said, it passed it passed 2-1. 66% of people voted yes on that, and we have a very large increasing senior population that's happened since then. And so I think if we put this back on the ballot with a clearer, more defined requirement from the BOCC, I am confident it would pass, and I believe that this is what the people of our communities do want. So I'm interested in seeing that happen. I don't know if that's something that would be interesting to anybody else here, but I think it's time for us to move forward and get that on the ballot and get the politics out of this year. Every single year I've been here, we've had this overly politicized debate, and I've never been happy where we ended up on this issue. So thank you for speaking today, Mr. Chairman. That's all my comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Cruz?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Jim, for raising this issue. This week on Monday, I spent a couple of hours over at the Northeast Senior Center. And when I walked in, the lighting was so terrible for me as a 40-year-old that I was concerned at tax time when our seniors go to do their taxes in this building that they can't even see to fill out their paperwork. So I've asked that community center to have some estimates completed with what it would take to get their lighting up to snuff. There's ceiling falling down in their craft room. There's a lot of things at multiple of our senior centers. I see Dr. Lee is here from La Familia, security concerns at their facility. So I hear you. And I also think that it's important that we reevaluate the multipurpose level planning and how much money is allocated to each senior center. I don't know when this was last reevaluated, because my first time when I was running for office, I sat in this room full of seniors, and it was nothing but senior centers. I guess the firefighters were taken care of that year because there were no firefighters in the audience. It was all seniors. And they were complaining about this funding structure then. So it is time, and I have been asking for a while. I think it's time that we demand it and we start really taking a good hard look, because for the multi-purpose senior center level that La Familia is operating at and Northeast is operating at, $57,000 a year doesn't really cut the mustard when you gotta pay for things. Specifically, at Northeast, the ground maintenance, I mean, they have trees that they're getting cited by the city because they can't take care of. So I hear you. I'm also pretty disappointed in the fact that the first recommendation of the $500,000 that we allocated last year in the budget, we were given 2 different rounds. The first round came back and it was $170,000, and it included senior centers. There were some extra funds available in that first contingency suggestion. The second recommendations come back and there's no senior center money at all. So that kind of puts us in a between a rock and a hard place, because now we have senior centers expecting additional money, but now there's none in the second recommendation. So we need to do something different. And I would have to agree with my colleague about the ballot measure, because I think it's important. We're only going to see more seniors utilize these services. But I think we do have an opportunity to reevaluate senior centers to become multi-generational type atmospheres, and work with a collaboration of all generations. So I'd like to see that as well. But Jim, those are my comments. I appreciate you being here today. In my professional career, in my private sector career, I was a senior advocate. I worked with seniors daily. So I understand the struggles of being on a fixed income. My dad is on one currently. We're trying to work through that together. So senior citizens have an advocate in me, and I am fighting for you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here today.
Thank you. Each one of us represent 1/5 of the county. And with that 1/5 of the county, it pretty well is divided up. Seniors are pretty well divided up, about 1/5 in each of the districts. However, the funding going into the district is not close to equal. That's my main concern. When we have senior centers that are getting as much for one senior center as I'm getting for my entire district, it's not equal. So we got about $14 million in the budget right now for senior services, and I will continue to fight for senior services. But until we can figure out a way to make sure that we are providing the equal level of service to all of the seniors instead of selected pockets, I will continue to object. Next speaker is Dr. Jennifer Brantley. Welcome. You have 5 minutes. State your name for the record.
Okay, thank you. I'm Dr. Jennifer Brantley. I am the director of the Extension Center. It's a pleasure to be here today in front of you commissioners. And I'm here with our board chair, Jeff Otto, and he'll be speaking here in a little bit. But, as you know, we're kind of a dotted line entity of the county, and we appreciate the continued support and partnership that we have with county and various departments there through IT, room rentals, and whatnot. As you know, of course, rising costs, inflation, cost of paper, and always, appreciating the opportunity to show our gratitude to our employees with a bit of a salary or wage increases is always something that we try to seek when we're looking at our budget. In 2014, we were granted the amount that we are getting allocated now. It has been flat for 9 years now. It's one of the lowest allocations that we've had ever since 1993. 2013 and 1993 were lower than this allocation. We do our best to be good stewards of taxpayer money by providing relevant and helpful programming and resources. We've been able to obtain a high level of this programming and outreach, as well as create new partnerships. The team has also worked to identify sponsors and grants to help cover the cost over the past couple years that we've not been able to put into programming. For example, when we host workshops or events, instead of just having money to support that, we seek sponsors and grants to help cover those costs. Additionally, this year we've streamlined several processes due to not filling a couple of vacancies that we've had recently. With the knowledge that the county is providing an 8% increase to our employees through salaries, and since our salaries are close to 90% of our budget, we would like to propose to the board to consider offering extension and increase in our allocation as well to cover the cost of inflation in 2023. And I have Jeff Otto here to speak a little bit more on our programming.
Good evening, Jeff.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. So as Dr. Brantley said, I am the current Executive Council Board with Extension, also known as Sedgwick County Extension, also known as K-State Extension, depending on whom you talk to. I think Extension is a huge asset to the community, the county community, in all that is offered there. And I think a lot of people seem to think about K-State Extension, Sedgwick County Extension being 4-H and that's it, but it's much more than that. So I just have three things I want to mention as far as what I feel like are noteworthy. One, in my career, which I've been in the lawn and tree care business about 40 years now, and throughout that entire career, I've kind of leaned on, so to speak, Sedgwick County Extension with their programming. And it's an excellent resource that not a lot of people know about. But back in the day, we need recertification hours each year, and we had to travel at least to, Hutchinson sometimes, Topeka, Kansas City, Emporia. But since then, there's been one of the horticulture agent has made available to all of us in the industry and other industries similar to have a recertification day at the Extension Center out there. Very helpful. It's well attended. At least 250 people each year attend that. And so it's a huge asset again, and it's a necessity. Another big one is the SHIC, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with, the SHIC counseling. Last year, our office out there had 4,500 clients that they had counsel with, and were able to save them over $1.2 million in finding them the right insurance policies to purchase. And finally, one thing that's very noteworthy in the state, actually, is the size of our Master Gardener program. I would assume you've all at least heard of Master Gardeners. They're all volunteers. We have 325 current Master Gardeners, and they're all volunteers, like I say. And last year, they provided a community value of about $440,000 for their volunteer hours that they provided, both in gardening and outreach to schools and things of that nature. So thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I don't see any questions. Commissioner Cruz, hold on just a moment.
Thank you both for being here today. Dr. Brantley, Jeff, perhaps you could go to Northeast and help them with their landscaping. They have a lot of maintenance that needs done. Do you do estimates? Perhaps you could reach out to Carnicia there, and we need to get that taken care of. So that's first. Second of all, I've asked Tom and our management team to really sort of look at what are we funding currently. And this is not going to be a popular suggestion, but I think it's one that needs to be stated. When we have programs like Exploration Place that are doing really incredible, they have increased membership, they have had a gangbuster year. Adam is doing a phenomenal job there. Could they possibly make do with $2 million instead of $2.2 million? Not take all of their funds away and be reasonable with expectations, still supporting other county assets. But when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, equity means that not all programs are in the same place. It means they're not all having the same opportunities for funding, be what it may. So I have asked management and our finance team to really look at, and we could craft a policy about how often we revisit these contracts and how often or how long we can, in fact, sign a contract with someone so that we don't have these long extended contracts for multiple years if the winds change and one entity is doing way better than the other. I mean, that is by definition equity, is trying to make things equal in ways that all programs can thrive. So I appreciate you being here, and I look forward to figuring out ways, because that insurance program alone, and don't you guys operate the RSVP program out of that building? I mean, that's through senior services, but they host some stuff in there, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, I appreciate your comments today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lopez.
Thank you. I think if we're going to talk about Exploration Place, we need to talk about it as a larger conversation, just because we are having the conversation about policy and looking at what we need to do with contracts that we already have, or extending contracts or creating new contracts, and looking at the ones that we're in business with currently. The Exploration Place and the zoo, I mean, we own those buildings. They're a part of our organization. They're on our organizational chart. So I do think when we're talking about our departments and having flat budgets, I mean, we've asked all of our departments with flat budgets for so many years to be able to be innovative, to be able to save money, to be able to do more, and Exploration Place is a great example of really what that can look like. They are focused on DEI work. They have a ton of where they're giving summer camps to kids who can't afford it, and they are getting into so many schools that are underprivileged and really struggling with poverty. So I do think that could open up to a larger conversation. We've been having it already, not just with Exploration Place and Extension and the zoo and everything else, but we'll be having that conversation. Will that be when we adopt the budget, or when are we going to have, or will that be at a staff meeting?
August 16th.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Well, Dr. Brantley, every time I get an email when you have open enrollment, and I get a lot of emails during that period of time, the seniors are very appreciative of what you do to help them through the open enrollment. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't see any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your support in the past.
The next speaker is LaWanda DeShazer. Please state your name for the record.
LaWanda DeShazer. So first of all, I just want to tell you, the commissioners, thank you, and staff, thank you for having the meeting at night because it really helps for the people that have to go to work. So thank you. So I'm here tonight advocating for Juneteenth, the federally recognized holiday, to be recognized on the county level as well. Juneteenth marked the end of a horrible time in America's history when people that look like me were enslaved. The abolishment of slavery should be celebrated by all, as it took a diverse effort to officially end it. I understand that giving employees a day off comes with the price tag. I know for a fact, this is for you, Lindsay, that the county has an outstanding finance department, and I am confident that if given their directive, they could absolutely rework the budget and make the numbers work. But another alternative could be to treat the day as an in-service day, similar to what has been done in the past with Columbus Day. So close to the public and use the day for training in areas such as diversity and sensitivity training. And I would be remiss, although I'm here for Juneteenth, I would be remiss if I did not bring up Sedgwick Lofton. The city and county put together a task force, and the task force came up with some recommendations, and most of those recommendations came with the price tag. And so I just want to keep that on your memory, that the community, the city's expecting to hear something. So at least if you did an update, this is what we've done, or this is what's being planned in the budget for next year, that would be very helpful. So anyway, I know that there's a lot on the county's plate. And again, I and members of the community and members of your staff, I appreciate your time and your consideration to this matter. Juneteenth would not have happened if everybody wasn't involved in it. And so it's not just a black holiday. It's not just for African Americans. It's for everybody to celebrate the diversity of our country and Sedgwick County. So please take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lopez.
Thank you. I agree. We need to talk about Juneteenth. We talked about it last year before this year, and we couldn't come up with a consensus. We're going to be doing that again in the upcoming months, just like we would anyway when we talk about all holidays. But I do agree. I mean, if we're going to talk about at the county that we take DE&I work seriously, then we need to show that we take that seriously. So those are conversations that we'll be having in regard. I don't know which way it'll go, obviously, but they're conversations that have been happening and will continue happening. As far as the task force, we have been able to at least start a lot of the things that were recommended, I think totaling over, $4 million. And we were supposed to have a task force update at the beginning of the week. We had a few people that have COVID, so we're pushing that back until hopefully that calms down a little bit. But I can tell you that our staff is doing incredible things, and when they're looking at grants that we're getting, they're always looking at what the task force recommended. We just heard some stuff this morning that they're looking into that's from the task force recommendation. So I can tell you that it's very much taken seriously. So as soon as we have that meeting, we'll have a large update on everything that we've done. But if you have any questions before that, I mean, I can certainly send you the information I have on what the recommendations were, what we've done, what we haven't been able to do, whether that's personnel or whatever the case is. And then we're putting into this next year's budget $1 million contingency. So as things come up, we can continue to fund them. So multiple millions of dollars have gone into that so far, and that's just the beginning. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cruz.
Thank you. Thank you, LaWanda, twice in one day.
Twice in one day.
Thanks for coming back tonight. I think that to be a good steward of resources, we could simply move the Juneteenth holiday to the floating holiday. I mean, if we're serious about this, we already have it in the budget for a floating holiday that isn't designated. Now, that might be an unpopular thing, so we'll have to talk about it. But if we were serious about making sure that we pay attention to our history and how it affects our future, that is one way to do it without causing any change to our budget. That's one thing. Commissioner Lopez briefly talked about the one thing we did talk about this morning was $20,000. Corrections brought their priority one was for implicit bias training. I think that we should do that for all employees of Sedgwick County. And so that was one particular thing. But I do agree, and I am supportive of enacting a Juneteenth holiday. I think that's vital to really walking the walk of DEI work. So appreciate you being here. Thanks so much.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, we set our calendar, along about the first part of November, middle of November. So at that time, this will be a point of discussion, and we'll also have to work with Lindsay Poe-Rousseau to find out what the cost is. So,
Thank you.
thank you. Next speaker is Nancy Dooling. Please approach the podium and state your name for the record.
Yes, my name is Nancy Dooling, and I am the President and CEO of Wichita Festivals, and thank you for your time this evening. I come before you to ask for an increase to fund the 2023 River Festival. I would like to share with you some of the success that we had during the 2022 Riverfest. Our board of directors, staff, sponsors, and volunteers were so supportive to move this event forward after the many challenges from COVID. This continues to be the largest community event in the state of Kansas, which this past year was Riverfest's 50th anniversary. We have some highlights that our attendance was over 330,000. We had 6,712 volunteers. Our merchandise sales increased over 35% compared to 2019, and we contribute that to the 50th anniversary merchandise. Our 2022 Riverfest app had 410,000 views. The 2022 Riverfest was funded through earned income realized from button, food, and merchandise sales. Corporate sponsorships and in-kind donations are specifically designated for underwriting the events produced by our organization. We also have a great partnership like we have had with Sedgwick County. We work very closely with Visit Wichita, which promoted the 2022 Riverfest. The promotion included surrounding states, which in fact secured numerous hotel rooms for festival attendees. And why I bring that up is that it was amazing how many people called our office when Willie Nelson was announced and how many people were coming from surrounding states. Along with Wednesday night, I had the opportunity to visit with several couples from Lincoln, Nebraska. And I thought, here on a Wednesday night, we're just so thrilled you're here. But they were walking across the street to one of the local hotels. And the reason why I bring that up is that our impact to Sedgwick County is over $25 million each year from the Riverfest. Our values are to create a fun, innovative, high-quality entertainment for our customers and a quality of life. There are several events and activities that we would like to enhance for the 2023 Riverfest with your increased funding. One of those events is the Downtown Get Down. This embraced all kinds of games and activities with our neighbors. The event hosted the Wichita State men's basketball team to interact with festival attendees by shooting hoops and signing autographs. We also had yard games like tug of war, cornhole tournament, wind wagon bathtub races, and the opportunity to get your picture taken with the Admiral. There was also a celebrity egg toss, which Lacey, I believe you participated in.
I almost won.
You did almost win. Next year, we would like to add musical entertainment and place stages throughout this event. Another event is Kids Corner. Children were able to enjoy games, art, and science projects, magicians, inflatables, and all kinds of activities. Another heartwarming event with lots of smiles and memories made with families as they enjoyed this event. With increased funding, we would be able to have the Kids Corner open throughout the week of the festival, which we need more activities during the daytime. I feel like we hit a home run this past year with our Kennedy Plaza concerts. We witnessed so many festival attendees having a great time. One of the memories I have is seeing a very successful businessman there, and he was two-stepping with his bride of over 50 years. Just seeing their smiling faces made me smile. And on Friday evening, we hosted the Fiesta Del Rio Celebration. And this was from Wichita's Hispanic community. And along with that community, we also had communities coming from Salina, Dodge City, and Garden City. Again, with increased funding, we would be able to offer festival attendees a wonderful 9-day festival to make memories and to continue with the traditions of the 51st Riverfest. And those dates are scheduled for June 2nd through the 10th. I would ask that you consider, this past year you donated, or you were a sponsor for $10,000. We asked for a $50,000 funding request for the 2023 Riverfest. And I am done, so thank you.
Well, thank you, Nancy. I appreciate it. And Commissioner Lopez and I were pitching the egg all the way across Douglas Street. And we got almost to the end, but the doggone people.
He threw it at me so hard it broke on my face.
Oh, no.
Let's be real. It was gross.
It was a long one.
It was pretty bad.
But it was a good time, a good time.
The car show is always fantastic. Of course, that's one of my highlights. But we appreciate what you do for the community with Riverfest.
Thank you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker is James Barfield. Please approach the podium, state your name for the record. You will have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is James Barfield, and I'm here to speak and advocate for the Juneteenth day to be designated as a paid holiday for county employees. I would like to remind you all that Juneteenth is a federal holiday. It's celebrated by all 50 states. 18 of those states do celebrate by paid holidays. Now, I understand that it costs money. I understand that you have demands for your budget monies, but I also understand that I bet that if you check with your finance director, that you have some money set aside in the CARES Act that it could be utilized for this process. And I also understand that while there's a demand on your budget, that budget increases each year, as does my and others' property taxes. So we know that there's funds and there's funds available. It's just a matter of you guys finding in your heart to, for one time, be proactive rather than reactive. Because I guarantee you, that number 18 is going to be increasing each and every year. So I'd like to see you guys be in front of the crowd as opposed to being behind the crowd for once. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I don't see any questions. Next speaker is Larry Brooks, Sr. Please approach the podium, state your name for the record, and you will have 5 minutes. Evening, sir. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis and Commission. Good evening. And again, thank you for the opportunity for us to be here to discuss and bring issues to your concern. Again, my name is Larry Burke, Sr. I'm the president for the Wichita branch of the NAACP. And again, I just want to continue to uplift the importance of the Juneteenth holiday as Mr. Barfield has addressed, and also as LaWanda DeShazier has also expressed it as a board. This is something I believe is within the purview of what you all are able to do. Matter of fact, I've heard discussion already that says you're going to look at this real seriously, and we really appreciate that. This is going to be a big morale booster to all of the employees in the county and for us overall as a city of Wichita, because this is something that is important, and we need to make sure we pay attention to this and ensure that we are concerned about the morale and welfare of all of our employees. So I thank you in advance for your consideration per what you've already addressed, as you and being able to look into this as you get to November. But this is something that we want to make sure we don't lose the importance of, because it is in fact something that's very unique and different. And as this is a national holiday, and hopefully we as the city of Wichita, this county, and all of us that are here can acknowledge that for the good of our employees here. So thank you very much for your time and attention. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. I appreciate your comments. I don't see any questions. And that is all the speakers that we have signed up on the Board of County Commissioners agenda for this evening. Do any commissioners have anything before I adjourn the meeting? Seeing nothing, I'm going to adjourn Board of County Commissioners meeting for August the 3rd, 2022. At this time, I'd like to call to order the governing body of Fire District Number 1 for August 3rd, 2022. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Roll call. Commissioner Meitzner. Commissioner Cruz.
Present.
Commissioner Howell.
Present.
Commissioner Lopez. Chairman Dennis.
Present. Next item, please.
New business. Item A, public hearing regarding the 2023 Fire District Number 1 budget.
Manager Stilts.
Good evening again, sir. Tom Stolz, County Manager's Office. This evening is the first public hearing on the 2023 recommended budget for Fire District Number 1. It totals $23,472,045. The budget will be supported with a property tax levy of $19,610,712, which will require a mill levy of approximately 17.889 mills based on the estimated assessed valuation and subject to technical adjustments. I recommend you open the public hearing, receive comments, and close the public hearing once it's over.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I appreciate it. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing in regards to the governing body of Fire District Number 1. I have two individuals signed up to speak this evening. First speaker is Casey Ingalls. Please state your name for the record. You will have 5 minutes.
Casey Ingalls, President of Local 2612, Sedgwick County Firefighters Union. I had several questions lined up. I have a fairly large statement that I want to make, though, so I'm going to prioritize that. I stand in front of you today representing the 95 members of Local 2612 with the Sedgwick County Fire District. In March of last year, I apologize ahead of time if I don't look at you. I'm going to try to keep to what I wrote so I can keep it moving. But in March of last year, this union had a total of 36 members. Now we're up to 95. In a little over a year, we've strengthened our union without having a bargaining unit, without having the ability to negotiate a contract, and with no relationship with overall county leadership. We banded together over the last year, not out of generosity, but out of necessity. Our union members are abandoning $46 a month out of their paychecks toward union dues. To some people, $46 does not sound like a lot of money. To an SCFD firefighter, that's taking a meal away from their family. These 95 members are paying their dues out of necessity for their future because we are fighting for the only thing we have left, and that is our voice. I stood before you almost exactly a year ago at the 2022 budget hearing and tried to paint a picture of what would happen if Sedgwick County did not fix the issues with our pay. That picture included losing multiple employees, possibly to the level that was seen by Sedgwick County EMS. The ideas pitched forward by Local 2612 over the last year included implementation of a step plan, moving to a 14-day pay cycle, increasing overtime pay to increase our callback staffing, giving time and a half pay no matter what for mandatory overtime, and many other ideas that were pitched forward. As of today, we're only aware of a possible step plan implementation, and that is it. From our standpoint, this is simply putting a Band-Aid on a broken arm. I'm here to tell you today that our employees have no faith in the county to do what is right due to the lack of transparency and deflection by elected officials. We have seen public meeting after public meeting deflecting from the real issue with other political narratives and passing the blame on to others. We have seen an HR department that, in my opinion, feels like they run the fire department and has more authority than the fire chief. In my opinion, we are even seeing levels of corruption that absolutely need to be addressed. I'd like to point out the city of Mays has been a hot topic. I want the people to know the reality that the city of Mays receives, somewhere in the realm of $6 to $7 million worth of fire service when you take into account salaries for 15 firefighters, about $2.5 million worth of apparatus, $2 million for a station, and that's people that are in that station 365 days a year at all times, 24/7. And the city of Mays pays approximately $1.3 million for that service. I would consider that a bargain. It is not feasible for Mays to start their own fire department and receive the same level of emergency response that they receive from Sedgwick County. Yet this issue continues to be highlighted and fed into instead of leadership standing up for the fire district and dispelling these rumors with facts. In fact, if we want to talk about the real issue with Mays, we should be talking about the ambulance in the fastest growing city in the state is one of the first trucks to be taken off track with EMS almost on a daily basis. And while we are at it, the same can be said for the ambulance in Hayesville as well, which just happens to be the busiest municipality in the fire district. Fire district emergency response call volume has increased 40% over the last 10 years. I can't understate that. I'm going to repeat it. The fire district emergency response call volume has increased 40% over the last 10 years. Fire district has been there the whole time. We mandatory staff our employees to fill stations and maintain minimum staffing levels. Our employees are underpaid, overworked, and burned out. Our employees are penalized and lose overtime for using their vacation. So many of the extra hours worked end up being for straight time because of the 27-day pay cycle. Many of our employees end up working 48 hours in a row or more for straight time. The fire district employee works 2,912 hours a year, works weekends, holidays, birthdays, numerous other events, compared to a 40-hour employee who works 2,080 hours a year, gets weekends off, holidays, gets to go home to their families every night. We work almost 1,000 hours more a year. And for those who think we sleep all night, I highly encourage you to come right out for a full 24-hour shift and find out just how well we sleep. And then possibly be asked to work another 24 hours or get to go home and be a fully functioning person, if you get that luxury. I myself have worked 96 hours straight before, 4 days in a row. This doesn't happen often, but I promise I'm not the only one this has happened to. I've missed countless birthdays, weddings, funerals. I missed.
Take your time.
I missed my son's first home run because I was at work. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. Those are just single examples of what happened this year. And I'm just one person. Ask my kids what they think of my job. They're not shy to tell you. They're glad that I help people, but they want their dad to be there. We could go on for hours on this topic because what also needs to be highlighted is the medical and mental toll that is put on first responders. Cardiovascular disease, cancer, suicide are all top killers of firefighters on top of emergency scene hazards. We see things that we cannot talk about for multiple reasons. The main ones being people don't want to hear it, and honestly, we don't want to relive it. Now we have to tell a fire recruit that we're only going to pay you $14.27 an hour to come and do this job. We are a separate taxing entity. The fire department is like no other job, and you cannot compare us to anyone else. At the current time, since 2015, we've lost 29 floor personnel. That's 29 firefighters, 21 of those to other fire departments. That number will increase exponentially over the next year. At the current time, I am aware of at least 6 fire district employees who have submitted applications with other fire departments. I'm aware of no less than 15 fire district employees that are actively seeking employment outside of Sedgwick County. I'm aware of approximately 34 fire district employees who are considering leaving Sedgwick County. And I'm aware of 125 captains, lieutenants, and firefighters that have updated their resumes. I'm not telling you all of this as a threat. I'm delivering the truth and what the public needs to know. Since 2016 and even before, this department has been on a downward spiral. We've been told to do more with less. We've been told to do our jobs and just shut up. Even when emergency response has increased by 40%. We've now reached a point that many of our employees can no longer financially stay here. Our employees are fully aware of what is happening across the street. We work very closely with Wichita Fire. Everyone knows they're in the middle of contract negotiations right now. Our employees know what is coming, and they are prepared to do what is right for them and their families. I'm going to wrap this up. I want to point out that we could have accomplished much more over the last year. And by we, I mean a combined effort by SCFD admin, county HR, county management, and local 2612. All of these meetings that were done behind closed doors, not once was local 2612 included in these meetings. Our voice was never heard by anybody with county HR, management, or finance throughout the process. There was zero transparency. All this could have been accomplished if Local 2612 were a recognized bargaining unit. All this could have been hashed out through negotiations and our voice would have been heard. Instead, we had to fight our battles in public. In fact, in this very hallway right out here. If this board does not vote to reinstate or recognize Local 2612 bargaining in the future, then the county will continue to have these issues every single year. And I'm not understating this. We have a long way to go to fix our problems, even outside of pay and benefits. And we will be on this stand every fire board meeting, every public staff meeting, and every budget meeting until Local 2612 is recognized again. Local 2612 is also in contact with state representatives. The word is spreading, and we are not going to lie down. This is just the beginning. We did not put ourselves in this position, and we did not ask for any of this. The fire board elected to rescind Local 2612 bargaining, and this fire board has the ability to recognize this once again. We want to work with everybody. We want to have conversations with all of the fire board members on how to fix our issues. It is vital to have a working, constructive relationship. I want to thank Commissioner Lopez, who has been very willing to listen to us and has made accommodations and efforts to listen to us. This must be the case across the board. We are on the verge of a true public safety crisis in the county, if we are not already there. We are in the 11th hour. The responsibility for everything that happens here on out falls on this fire board. The responsibilities taken on by the commission that also acts as the fire board is not an easy task. You have two separate taxing entities. You have to be able to take one hat off and put on another. It may be time to start having discussions on how we move in the direction of electing a separate fire board that is able to focus on the fire district solely. There also needs to be heavy discussion and action to lock in the fire district taxing boundaries. We should look to Johnson County for reference on this. I'm going to ask the members of Sedgwick County Fire District 1 to please stand up. I know I went over my time. My comments have probably ruffled feathers and probably made people angry. But as we walk out of here tonight, do not focus your attention on me. Look at their faces. These are the firefighters who literally will sacrifice their life for the citizens of Sedgwick County. Some of these families will have tough decisions to make over the next year, whether or not to continue their employment with the fire district. I hope I'm wrong. I hope we are able to keep all of our firefighters and be competitive to recruit new ones. We must do more. If there's money on the table, we have to utilize it. We have to do everything possible and whatever is necessary for the preservation and the sustainability of the fire department. Thank you.
Thank you, Firefighter Ingalls. Appreciate it. I don't see any question. Oh, Commissioner Cruz.
Thank you, Casey. That was moving. Can you go back up to this podium for a sec? What's your son's name?
Easton.
Easton.
Yeah.
Was he excited? Did he knock any runs in?
I think 2 or 3, yeah.
Nice. Have you been able to catch some this summer?
I have missed a lot, but I have been able to watch some.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I can't say that that didn't break my heart to hear that. I mean, that was very, very moving, and I don't understand why we can't go to the 14-day period, so I guess that's a question that I'd like to ask. Specifically, what are the plans for becoming a union again?
I mean, we're ready. All it takes is a vote. I mean, we are a union still. We are not a recognized bargaining unit. A recognized bargaining unit has the ability to negotiate contracts.
Okay.
And that's what we need to accomplish.
Okay. I'd love to meet with you guys about that. I think it's important to understand bargaining, and it's important to understand what you guys do and how you do it. I remember taking Fire Ops 101, and I thought I almost had a panic attack when he told me to get on the ground so that I could crawl, and I had to get back up, and I couldn't get back up because the suit was so heavy. I mean, I really can't imagine what you guys do on a daily basis, and I hope that we can do more. I really do. So will you stick around so that we can chat after this to set up a meeting later?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, Casey, I appreciate you being here.
All right,
Thank you for sharing those words.
Thank you. Commissioner Lopez.
Thank you, Casey, for coming and speaking tonight. I know it probably isn't easy to get in front of the board and say everything that you said, but I think it needs to be said, and I appreciate it. Obviously, I'm a big union household. My husband is a union leader like yourself, so I understand how hard that can be from pretty much every level. But I know we have a meeting coming up when I get back in town in a couple of weeks, so looking forward to hearing more. But I mean, you guys have my support, and we'll continue to do so. So we'll see what we can do on our end.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just, I actually agree with you on the fire board being elected separately from the BOCC. I think it's going to require legislation probably to do that. So I think that is something we ought to put on our legislative platform and see if we can make that happen this next year. I'd support that. I think fire district boundaries is something we've been talking about for a while. I think that's also something we should pursue. I think that's a very good idea. But I guess I have one question for you, and that is, what specifically, I understand, I heard everything you said today. I actually even recorded it, and I'll go back and watch it again. But in terms of salary, what specifically are you asking for?
If there's money that's not being utilized, which, like I said, we've been left in the dark quite a bit, so we don't know. But if there's money not being utilized, I've been able to take a look at our budget, and there's about $3 million in contingency, and I don't know what all that's going for. And we're not asking for all that money to be utilized for salary and pay. We need a portion of that. If we can do more, we have to do more.
Is your chief here?
I don't believe so.
That contingency is because we have to make adjustments between now and we have a very dynamic economy. We don't know where we're going to end up. That contingency gives us some authority to make adjustments between now and the end of next year if we have to. We don't even know what that means right now, but we have to have some authority to make some changes if we have. If something happens, that's how we handle that. That's why it's a larger number this year. That's a big number. That doesn't mean necessarily that that's money that can be spent right now, but that is what that's for. So maybe I'm saying that wrong, but that's my opinion.
I understand.
Our CFO is basically saying yes. I've asked questions. In all seriousness, I've asked questions about, is HR a good deal for the fire district, or is there some way that we can maybe, move that away from the county? And I think when you look at all the things that are being provided, I think the opinion is it's probably, and I've not looked at the action, I've not looked at the analysis, but I think it's apparently it's a fair trade how much money is costing the fire district for the services that are getting. I don't know that personally. But I think when you look about the legal side and the payroll side and the auditing side and the purchasing side and everything else that goes into what makes county work, the argument is that that's a fair amount. It's calculated. So I'm open to the idea of changing that. So let's start. That's another idea.
I do believe the efficiency. We do have an efficiency committee that is working on that, and I think, from what they've been able to find so far, they haven't finalized everything, but there is savings there that we could actually do better.
Okay, so let's continue that conversation. And I've went and tried to find ways to get the Kansas Star Casino moved in your direction, and that's apparently legally impossible. So, and then finally, I have said, I continue to talk about the idea that it's not fair for, again, I love Wichita and I love Wichita Fire, but you guys provide a lot of services to Wichita. And I don't think it's right that an entire taxing jurisdiction is receiving, if you will, a second fire protection service without a cost to that jurisdiction. So the only way to really address that is we need to find a way to make that fair. And I think we have some authority to do that, but we might require legislation. But until we solve that problem, we only have so many dials we can twiddle in the fire district. And things like, what are the costs, the overhead, we just spent $5.7 million, committed $5.7 million today for 6 fire trucks, which I'm very supportive of, by the way. But we have to find a way to make this balance. And the only other one of those aisles, of course, is a tax rate. And I know that there are many, perhaps, who think that's the right answer, but I think we got to be very careful. So I know that the issue of maize. Cities like Derby it wasn't that long ago. They went from a volunteer department to a full-time department, and that's one of those things that cities of that size they pursue that because they know they can lower their mill levy. So at some point, when these cities continue to grow, and I think Maize is one of the fastest-growing cities in the entire state of Kansas, it's going to be a topic that has to come up at some point. And I think the city officials are actually not rumoring this, but they're seriously talking about it. So I don't know what that means, but understand that they would bond out their buildings, they would bond out their fire trucks, or they would lease them out, or cities can bond fire trucks, actually. So it might be they would pay for those things over 20 years. And so it begins a little bit more something that they're interested in doing. So I am concerned about the maize factor on this, and I think if we do only raise the mill levy, then we do have some challenges, I think, with sustainability. And I just mean that with all, again, I'm not trying to be controversial. I want you guys to get money in your pocket. I really do. I want sustainability of the fire district. And my question is, how can we do that? And so I've come up with all these ideas. I'm supportive of all of them. But at the end of the day, we have to find a way to do this, to get you guys money in the pocket that sustains the fire district somehow. So all these things are on the table, and I'll work with you any way I can. Thank you.
Commissioner, I do have one question for you, if I could. This morning in the commission meeting, you were talking about lease purchasing of department apparatus. In that question, you referenced something about restructuring the fire department. A lot of our people were watching that meeting. I think some people would like some elaboration by what you were meaning on that.
So what I meant by that comment was we don't know the future. If 3 years from now, when we start taking delivery of these vehicles, and we have a contract purchase lease agreement with the vendor that we're buying these from, and if something happens to the fire district, what does that do to our obligation? Okay, somehow we have to have a conversation. If something does happen, we have to understand what is our legal responsibility. When I say something happens, I'm not saying that we would do something. I'm simply saying, let's say Mays does pull out. If that happens, I don't know where that leaves the fire district. I'm very concerned. And so if you try to maintain the same amount of buildings and firefighters and fire apparatus without Mays putting into that $23 million budget, it doesn't sustain itself without a significant tax increase. At that point, things begin to unwind a little bit because at that point, Cheney will be talking about moving out, and Hayesville starts talking about moving out, Baylor starts talking about it. Next thing you know, the whole thing falls apart. So we have to find a way that we don't start that snowball rolling. We got to keep that from happening. And I'm just saying, if it did happen, beyond our control, nothing we're doing, if Mays started that process, we have a problem, and we have a $5.7 million obligation on the table that we have to make sure we understand we are obligated no matter what happens to the fire district. So that was my point. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Thank you.
I would like to point out Cheney is not part of the fire district as well.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean Cheney. I meant Goddard. Excuse me.
Okay. I just want to make it clear that I know you all have a job to do. At the end of the day, it is also your responsibility to not let the fire district fail. We can't allow that to happen. And if there's rumors being spread or talks happening in Mays, we have to go up there and we have to fight those rumors. We can't, stand beside them and feed into that. We have to fight those.
Yeah. Oh, it's the opposite side of the county, so I'm not part of that discussion, but I've heard it a dozen times in the last couple of months from many different people. So again, I don't think it's bad information. I think it's real, and I just want to say, if it happens, then it's going to change the fire district significantly if that did happen. And the argument would be, the county is very confident. We have a great contract with Mays. But the challenge is that they also have a constitution called constitutional home rule. So I almost guarantee this has to go to court to settle whether or not we have a contract that sustains a challenge and whether or not they have a constitutional argument that they would win. I don't know where that ends up, but I just want to say that cities would have constitutional home rule. That's a pretty big argument on their side. So I don't know where that ends up. But if they take us to court, I personally think it's likely that they would win that. So I don't know.
I understand. In my eyes, that seems like something that would play out multiple years. That's not something that just happens overnight. What we're facing is a dilemma that could possibly happen overnight and losing multiple firefighters, and that will result in closing stations, which will fall on the fire board's shoulders to figure out which stations we have to close. And that, to me, is the bigger issue right now. If we don't have firefighters in the stations, then the city of Mays discussion is not even...
Final comment for me then, I'll just say this. It's my goal to get you guys a big pay raise. And I don't want to close any fire stations. I don't want to see any firefighters leave. So I agree with you in why you're here today. The question is, how do we get there? Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cruz?
Thank you, Chairman. I forgot to ask you a question,
Okay.
So I appreciate the opportunity to speak again. So, Casey, if you would, you mentioned the word corruption in your speech, and I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable, but would you feel comfortable elaborating about that?
It appears outward, for looking in, that there's things going on that don't add up. They don't look right. And maybe it's something that we could have a discussion with behind closed doors, because there's things that absolutely do not add up. And in my opinion, and it's not just from me, it's from our union members as well. They see everything too. And it's things that people have been wanting to bring up for a very long time. And I think it is something that is worth having a discussion with, and if we have to meet with all of you, we would gladly do it.
Yeah, I want to hear everything that you want to discuss with me on this topic.
Okay.
Because when people say that, I mean, I take that very seriously. That's one of my jobs here, is to make sure that we are running a tight ship and that we're running a ethical organization. And we need to be doing things the right way for the right reasons. And
Right.
I look forward to speaking with you about that. Now, I do have one other question in regards to our obligation for our contingency fund. So this question is really for finance. You know, in our recommended budget, you know, we have a 20% fund balance that we're required to keep. But right now, we're sitting at about a 38% fund balance, or excuse me, unused fund balance in our regular budget. So what is it with the fire district specifically? What are those contingency levels?
So Lindsay Purso, your CFO, we do not have by policy any minimum requirement. The best practice is that any general fund maintain that minimum 20%. And that's a Government Finance Officers Association standard. So that is what we would most likely recommend for the fire district.
What are we sitting at right now, though?
I will have to do the computation on that. I'm sorry, I don't have that with me.
Okay. So above and beyond the 20% is what I'm really looking for.
And what we would want to do with that is, just like with fund balance on the county side, we have a policy about trying to use that on one-time things, pilot projects, things like that. Not necessarily recurring costs, because the challenge becomes that, and you have a structural imbalance if you're relying on drawing down essentially your cash in your bank on recurring stuff. So I think there's been a lot of discussions in the last couple of weeks about looking at the debt and the lease principal, and so I think we will have a lot more information to share with you when we complete that, and that will include what is the appropriate level of fund balance, what ability do we think we have with the contingency so early in the process, and all that. So
yeah,
we will have more conversation, I'm certain.
Okay, great. Now, in regards to the Mays Fire Department discussion, I did have a conversation with Richard Lemunyon in July around this very conversation, and if they could do it, they want to do it. I mean, let's just be real. So I brought this up after my meeting in July here from this bench at an open meeting, talking about that was the conversation with the entire council of Mays was at that meeting. So that is a very real thing that we should really start paying attention to, and I'd like to have that on a staff meeting so that we can really talk the nuts and bolts of that and have an open discussion so that we are doing it in a transparent way possible so that everyone can see the conversation regarding that. I think it's important for us to really start having open conversations now about it. So, Casey, those are all my questions and comments. Thank you guys so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've got a couple comments. First of all, the word corruption has been used a couple times tonight, but I don't have any facts or details. And if we're going to use those words, we need to have facts and details. So if you could draft something up and send it to the commission so that we'd have some idea of what you're talking about, what departments, what people, and so forth, because that is something that's very significant when we hear that word. So we do need details there. Today, we voted for over $5 million worth of fire equipment for the fire district number 1. I think that's a pretty good commitment that we support fire district number 1 going out a number of years. We actually bought things, we voted for things this year that we wouldn't be purchasing for another couple years just because of the long lead time in order to be able to get that apparatus that you need in order to do your job. You've heard me a number of times last year. You asked for a step plan, and you asked for a plan so that you could take a look at the future and know where your pay is going to be in the future. That's important because if you don't see that you've got a future in our department, you're going to leave. And so we need to show that there is a plan in place, that if you stay with us, we're going to be able to tell you what your pay is going to be as you move up the ranks and as you move up in longevity. And that step plan is now in process. So we've committed to that. Pay raises, we've committed to those. The biggest issue that I have, honestly, overall, out in Fire District Number 1 is not with you all. It's with the people that aren't in Fire District Number 1, that aren't paying their way in order to be able to support you and to support the other people that are paying their way. And I've said that a lot of times, that I'm very concerned. And then when I hear cities like Colwich sign a mutual agreement with the city of Wichita, a mutual aid agreement with the city of Wichita, that is beyond my comprehension, that they would go outside of their city limits and then say that they're going to sign a mutual aid agreement. And what does that do? Sure, it sits there and sets up Colwich so that they don't have to become a member of Fire District Number 1, and their township doesn't have to become a member of Fire District Number 1 because they've got a backup from the city of Wichita. That's not right. So I'm going to continue to fight to make sure that people that are getting our services are paying for their services, and those that aren't getting our services need to and if they want them, they pay for the services. That's where I've come from all along. So I just want you to understand that I do fight for you, because I think that it is important that you remain a viable, you're one of the very few professional firefighting departments we've got in all of Sedgwick County, and we're proud of that. But we can't sustain it if we're going to give away everything to people that don't pay for it. So that's honestly where I'm coming from. So if you've ever got any questions, please ask me. I went through Fire Ops 101 with Commissioner Cruz. I put on the firefighting equipment and went into Connexes and beat down a fire. It's a hell of a job. I don't cuss, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
It's okay. You don't hear me use any words like that very often. I apologize. But I'm so proud of our firefighters, and I want to make sure that you understand that we are, but I want to make sure that where we get the funding to fund you is equal to everyone that you get your services. So I do have one question for Mr. Papoon. We've heard several times tonight and previously, what would it take for someone to actually pull out of the fire district? I don't know that it's that easy.
Mr. Chairman, Mike Papoon, County Councilor, you're exactly right. It isn't that easy. The only city that's pulled out of the fire district is Eastboro, and the way they did it and the procedure that can be used by statute, and it won't be overcome by constitutional city home rule, I'll add that, is that they would have to have a survey of whatever area they wanted to pull out. If you had a survey of the entire city of Mays, and 10% of the landowners in the city of Mays petitioned the Board of County Commissioners to pull that area out of the fire district, then the county commissioner may let them out. They don't have to let them out. You may let them out. This is a big obstacle. The attorney for Mays has called me, told me that they don't have any intention of pulling out of the fire district, and agreed with my legal opinion that it would be very difficult. The city of Bel Air has tried to threaten this at times, and we've told them the same thing. So the only way these cities are pulling out of the fire district is if this board wants them to pull out of the fire district.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Papoon. I appreciate it. And Mr. Papoon has told me that several times in the past. I just wanted to make sure that it was on record so that everyone understood that. Thank you. Commissioner Cruz?
So, Mike, when did you have this conversation with the city attorney of Mays?
It was after you had your conversation with Chief LeMunion, or not Chief LeMunion, used to be a chief, the city manager.
Sure. So I was not informed of this. This is the first that I'm hearing of this as well. So again, I would ask that things that happen in my district, when you have conversations, please include me in those conversations. I mean, yeah, I mean, and I don't get it either, guys. So here's the deal. I mean, I would really like to be communicated to when in concerns of my district, so that I'm not blindsided yet again of conversations that you have had that I have not been privy to. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Firefighter Ingalls and all firefighters, I do have one more speaker, but thank you. I appreciate it. The next speaker is Dustin Goetz. Please approach the podium. State your name for the record. Very good. All right, thank you. I don't have any other speakers. Commissioners, does anyone have anything to come before the Board of Governing Body of Fire District Number 1? Seeing nothing at this time, I'd like to close the public comments for Fire District Number 1. And I don't see anything else on our agenda tonight, so we are adjourned. Thank you all.